What's going on, guys? I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So topics today, we're going to talk about damaged PSA 10s, people moving into higher end, higher value collectibles in terms of the Pokemon card world. And then lastly, we're going to talk about my collection goals because 2023 is coming to an end. We'll be in 2024 soon, and it'll be a fresh start, a whole new year, and a fresh start for collectors, myself included. So I'm going to go into a little bit of what my kind of goals are towards the end of the year, and then maybe come January, I will do a 2024 collection goals video and go more in depth of what I'm trying to achieve. Okay, so starting off, there's a lot of stuff going around in the community about PSA 10s being damaged. There's plenty of stuff going on with people getting PSA 9s and then being damaged, but you know, that you can chalk up to, okay, well, it's a PSA 9, it's not perfect, therefore it's gonna have some damage. And honestly, no card is perfect. Every card has to be cut. I mean, unless I guess it's on a sheet, but most cards are gonna be cut, so they're gonna have some form of imperfection no matter what you do. So it really brings us to like, why do we buy PSA 10s, right? Why do we go after perfection, especially now with so many people that get their PSA 10s and there's something wrong with them? Especially people are buying, you know, they're trying to go for value and they're really buying the label more than they're even buying the card. People are buying, you know, I see these PSA 10 collections for sale for exorbitant amounts of money. And when it comes to newer cards, I chalk it up to just people are trying to get as much as they can for this and then get out of it because they overspent in this market. People got over leveraged buying Pokemon cards. People took on debt. So they're just trying to get as much as they can to pay off a debt. In a lot of cases, I feel like people got in over their heads. Back in 2021, 2022, I think people were overspending. I was definitely one of those people. So I know how it feels like, and I know that it's relatable. But I think, you know, people spent so much money probably trying to open products, trying to get the cards, and then trying to buy the cards and trying to master set stuff, and then collect sealed product that at a certain point, I am sure that 70% of the people that came into the hobby the last couple of years ended up at some point in debt and probably had to pay that debt off by selling stuff for higher than market prices. So I think that has to do with a lot of these really crazy prices. But it's funny when it comes to vintage, it's kind of, you kind of can't buy the labels when it comes to vintage because a lot of the modern stuff has been graded recently. So the certs, these certification numbers on the slabs, they're a little bit newer. Now this one's 7.9, which is pretty awesome because it's right up to the modern kind of generation of PSA slabs right now. Right now we're in the 8 cert generation, the 80 millionth generation of PSA slab submissions. And so this is pretty modern, right? 8 is pretty modern. But we see a lot of vintage slabs in the 2s, 3s, even some in the 4 cert area. I have some 2s, I have some 3s, I have some 4s. They're PSA 9, but nonetheless, they are older slabs. And sometimes you can see a quality control difference with how they graded before and how they grade now. But a lot of the times the cards are going to be fine. I'm just saying there are a lot of people selling their vintage PSA 10 cards for crazy prices, and it's hard to validate buying cards like that when you know that, hey, this was graded in a different time where the standards were different, where a lot less people were grading, and they were maybe a little more inclined to hand out higher grades because me and several of my friends have agreed on this. I've started talking to a couple of people about their experiences in the high-end vintage card world of buying PSA 10s, and it's really horror stories. I mean, it's really people buying these 10s, and they get the card in the mail, and they look at it, and there's, a little ding. There's a little ding there. There's a little bit of whitening. That's not the most bothering thing in the world. The problem is that when you're paying the PSA 10 premiums that people are paying right now, especially with the whole pandemic and the inflated market and everybody getting into trading cards and collectibles and really mainly Pokemon. Pokemon absolutely exploded the last couple of years. If you don't know that, if you're coming back now and you didn't realize that Pokemon has become a whole new widespread phenomenon that it really hasn't been the past decade. That's a thing. Really, in the past couple of years, Pokemon has grown more than it's ever grown. We've seen more growth. We've seen more cards printed than we've ever seen before. So there's a lot going on in this hobby right now. And that being said, there's a lot of people grading now. The grading numbers have gone up way higher in terms of the certs being in the 8 area. But there are people buying certs, and they're really buying the grade. They're looking at these cards, they're buying the grade. They're like, this seems like a pretty decent price. When the reality was there were different standards at that time, and the cards that are graded as 10s that are older certs in some cases really ought to be 9s. They really should not be 10s. In theory, right? Nothing is perfect in life, but in theory, a PSA 10 is a perfect card. It is a perfect card. I know there's a lot of people that are going to say PSA 10 is not perfect. PSA 10 is just you're getting a 10 instead of a 9 because they can't find anything wrong with it. But there's always something wrong with the card. I understand there might be a micro scratch or some type of blemish or something, or maybe slightly not perfectly centered and it still hits a 10. But we're seeing older 10s. We're seeing them be straight up dinged or damaged and they still have 10s. Pretty scary stuff. And this isn't even somebody that asked me to talk about this content, because I've been asking folks, what do you want me to do content about? What topics do you want me to talk about? But this has been a reoccurring theme. I tried to look for topics amongst people that I'm talking to of, an overlapping theme of what they want to hear being talked about. And, in one instance, a friend of mine got a Crystal Lugia. And for reference, since I'm not the best at editing skills, but I do have this card in my possession. This is the English one. In this case, and this is an absolutely phenomenal card. If you're thinking of starting Grail collecting, this is a great card to start with. Honestly, this is one of my favorite cards in my entire collection. I think, amongst the most popular Pokemon, Pikachu, Charizard, Mewtwo, Lugia, Rayquaza, and then pretty much any legendaries or shinies that follow that, in a special iteration. A lot of these cards are some of the most valuable cards in the hobby, and then some of the most popular cards in the hobby. Anyways, the Lugia that I just showed you guys, that card in a PSA 10. Now, this was the Japanese card, which that's Aquapolis, the English set. In Japan, it's called Wind from the Sea. And so this was a Wind from the Sea Japanese Lugia 10, basically the same card, but it was in a PSA 10. And you sent some pictures in our thread, and the card was just straight up dented. It was just straight up dented. To me, a card that's dented is like automatic 6 or 7. No matter how nice the card is, it's dented, automatic 6 or 7. That's the structural integrity is lost on a card once it gets dented. I think this is really, really important. It's great for people trying to get a good bargain that really don't care, or they're cracking slabs for their binder. And that's kind of another piece to this. If you're gonna buy cards, especially for your binder, don't buy 10s. Don't buy 10s because you're gonna overpay for those cards. They're still gonna probably be flawed in some way, and you're just gonna spend way more money on the 10. And if you're gonna crack it anyways, why not just go for a 9? Go for a 9 that maybe should have been a 10. That in your opinion, based on using your eyes, you're looking at the card and you're like, this card looks like it could have been a 10. I'm going to buy this even though it's a 9, crack it, put it in my binder. You could even crack 9s and probably sell them as being a higher gradable copy of a card. There's so many different avenues you can go about this when you're trying to collect these higher grade level cards. But I would be very careful right now about buying vintage PSA 10 cards. I would be very careful right now. Now, in terms of that Lugia, I did not see if the certification was a fairly newer cert, but I would say try to be on the safe side if you're buying high-end cards and go for a newer cert. For example, I recently sold my Crystal Charizard. I know I've blabbered about this Crystal Charizard so much, but it was one of the pinnacles of my collection, for a very short period of time because I decided I wanted a 9. But when looking at 9s, I see options out there. I see older certifications. I see people willing to accept a certain number from me. But yet I still want the newest cert I can find. And there's a brand new Crystal Charizard that was submitted, and I'm trying to work something out with that seller. But anyways, my point is, what I've learned in all this time is that if you can find an older card with a new certification, it might even be worth it in some cases to crack a card. If you're really confident it'll get a 9 or it'll get a 10 again, to crack it and resubmit and try and get that new cert. Maybe PSA offers, a card without being cracked necessarily, for them to be able to crack it and look it over and say if it's eligible to get the same grade or even a higher grade. I'm not an expert on PSA. I just thought that this would be a decent topic to talk about, and, to warn people to be careful, especially in the market that we're in right now, about, buying PSA 10 vintage cards, that those prices, who knows? It could take a lot of people to move those prices. A lot of people would have to sell and take losses for a price movement to actually happen. So then this is why, some of the rarer, more sought after cards are a lot safer to park your money in. Maybe it's a lot more money up front, but they could be safer cards to put your money in. So moving forward, I think this topic rolls into the next of people are buying high-end cards right now. People are buying hype. They're buying high-end cards right now. That is a place where people, I feel like, are refining their collecting goals and collecting something that they feel is probably safer, that's probably more popular. In my case, it's been one of the best things that I ever did was starting to collect crystals and gold stars and my shining cards, and really focusing on alternate arts, modern alternate arts that I really, really like. I think it's just really important for people to have a focus, right? I think in general, I said this in the last video, and it still reigns true, like, having a focus in this hobby, knowing what you're going after, it can be very, very helpful. Can streamline your collection goals, can make you a more effective seller as well, because you have your niche. You have this thing that you've become expert in, whether it's collecting, grail cards, or whether it's collecting modern alternate arts. You try to find a really good deal, and, all you sell is alternate arts. That can seriously work out if you stick to that goal. I did forget one thing. So this is my Umbreon. It's a PSA 10. A friend submitted it for me, and they honestly, I don't think they thought it was going to get a 10. I didn't think it was going to get a 10 just because I was just kind of pessimistic and the centering isn't perfect. But this card got a 10. Now, I can't see the damage, but one of my friends claims that there's a scuffing on the back of the card, and there might just be, and I just can't see it. But damn, this card is pretty clean though. This is a strong PSA 10 in my opinion. But I don't see any scuffing, but even my PSA 10 Umbreon that came back, and maybe this is also biased because there's a lot of this card. There's a ton of these Umbreons in a PSA 10, maybe like 8,000 or 9,000. But even this card that supposedly has a scuff or marks on it somewhere, it got a 10. So you might be thinking that you're buying perfection when really you're just buying the grade. So people should be really careful about that, because I think a lot of people, when they come into the hobby, they think that they should be buying PSA 10s. That was not me. I just thought, I can't afford PSA 10s. They're too expensive. I'm just going to buy raw, or I'm going to buy lower grades, because it just doesn't make financial sense for me to buy PSA 10s. But I don't feel like I have to say this. I don't feel like I have to make this content, but there's people that think that this content should be made. And, maybe it'll be a good, public service announcement. Hey, maybe don't buy PSA 10s because you might get screwed over. You might overspend. And it might just be way out of budget and unrealistic. Just because people have bought these cards before in a PSA 10 for these crazy prices before doesn't mean that you should too. It's definitely something to think about. Work within your own budget and collect what you love, because at the end of the day, like, if you're going to follow the hype of PSA 10s and the newest, greatest thing, you're probably going to end up in a hole. A lot of people end up in a hole trying to, chase the tail of the dragon, I guess I should say. That's a pretty badass way of saying it. Anyways, again, a lot of people are moving into higher end, more rare cards that are easy to get their equity back on. This is a strategy that I took because I was a little bit worried about where the market would be going, and I knew that I personally had a lot of what I like to call junk slabs. I had a lot of just random grade stuff, and I was very successful. I have about one more stack left of graded cards that I'm going to get rid of, but I was very successful in unloading a lot of stuff at Collecticon. I would say if you're in a position you have a lot of stuff to sell, Collecticon is a great thing. It's a great chance that you have to wait and liquidate all that stuff without having to go through all the hassle online of selling stuff. That convention helped me out majorly, trim down my collection, get a ton of equity back, and really also showed me that Pokemon, it was still investable. I still made some gains, very little gains, but I still, because it was all in person and vendors were giving me, 70% comps, but I had gotten this stuff for even less than what they were comping me on. So I was able to do well on some stuff, but Collecticon helped me big time. One of the things that I noticed again was that these vendors really want your higher end stuff. If it's lower end stuff, I'm sorry, this chair is shaking a lot. If it's lower end stuff, they're gonna want raw cards. They're going to want stacks of your raw cards. It's going to be easier for them to display, easier for them to sell, easier for them to move around, easier for them to transport. Vendors don't want slabs. The only reason they want your slabs, and I experienced this at the local vendor show that I just went to the other day on Saturday during the day. They only want your slabs if they're higher end cards. This is why. It's really hard to gauge what to offer someone on a higher end card when the market is all over the place for raw cards. And sellers love that because sellers want to be able to give you the lowest, possible value they can give you on cards. I mean, that's not all sellers, right? There are vendors that are fantastic that are like, I'm always going to give you 70% of last sold comp. Those are sellers that honestly you want to work with because they have to make some money too, right? If they're vending full time and they're doing this, they're taking the risk that you're not having to, they're taking time to sell your cards for you. So if you're wanting to liquidate, expect 60, 70%. I would say fight for 70% if you're at a convention. But again, they have to do that extra work. A seller that's like really just like, I don't know, this price is all over the place, it's raw, I'm not sure how to value it. If they're not willing to give you a decent valuation on something raw, I would just walk away from that deal. And I see that. I saw that when I was at Collecticon. I saw it when I was at this little trading expo recently. But what I did see that helped was the graded cards. The graded cards for higher end cards, right? Higher value cards. They want to have a nice display case. Sellers want to have a nice display case, whether they're selling online or whether they're selling in person. They want to have a streamlined store. At least this is what I think is, like, in my opinion, this is the ideal way to be selling and collecting, is have a very streamlined collection. For me, one of the best things is I've got my binders for current modern sets, and I can just put all the singles and raws in there, and I can collect the cards that I want, buy them as raws, not care about grading, and I've got the set. I just do it for completion, really. But when it comes to like specific cards, like the Umbreon, for instance, I don't even have to have an Evolving Skies binder. I could just have this Umbreon card. And this card, in my opinion, represents Evolving Skies better than anything else. If you have this card and maybe one booster box of Evolving Skies, that's very streamlined stuff. That's the stuff I'm talking about. I'm talking about like going for very specific things and having a streamlined collection. It's going to make it easier for you. It's going to be easier to enjoy. It's going to be less space taken up. All things to factor in. And again, I think it's overall better. This is my opinion now as I've evolved as a collector. Go after the higher end stuff if you can. Like Fusion Strike, for instance. 2 of the higher end cards in Fusion Strike. You've got the Mew VMAX, okay? Higher end alt art, if you can go for that in a 10. For the modern 10s, right? We're talking about 10s here, and to be careful. Be careful with 10s. But that's really more geared towards like vintage Japanese, vintage English 10s that are old certifications. New cert 10s, which most of them are modern certs because that's when these sets were coming out, was when there was a boom, when everybody was submitting cards, when people were grading, they didn't even have an idea of what they wanted to get back as a grade. They were just winging it. This is another topic that I should probably talk about separately. People just winging it. Yeah, I think it's okay with alt arts, right? I've gassed up alt arts recently. I'm holding to that. I still think that they're okay to buy, especially if you can get a good deal on a PSA 10 that's recently been submitted. So back to Fusion Strike. Instead of trying to collect, everything in Fusion Strike in this market, focus on the cards that have been hit the hardest. Focus on those alt arts. Focus on cards that vendors might want from you, that other, collectors are gonna want eventually. A big mistake that I made in collecting was trying to collect everything all at once and really not streamlining exactly what I wanted from each set. That is one of the best things that you can do. Get that Blaziken from Chilling Reign in a PSA 10 right now for a good deal. Get that Blaziken. That's a fantastic card. Infusion Strike, the Mew VMAX, the Gengar VMAX Alt Art, the Mew V Alt Art, the Espeon VMAX and V Alt Arts from Fusion Strikes. There are very specific cards that I think everybody should be taking advantage of buying right now in a PSA 10 that I still consider high value, higher end cards, right? A $200, like, it's not just monetary. That's not what, the amount of money you spend does not really dictate whether a card is high end, because a card that is $200 now could be $2,000 in 10 years. That is a high end card, right? That is a highly sought after card. I believe that some of the alternate art VMAX cards that are very popular Pokemon, Gengar is probably in the top 10 most popular Pokemon of all time. So the Gengar VMAX from Fusion Strike, which I still don't own, that's a fantastic card to go after. All the EV evolutions. I mean, this is like fundamental stuff, but I guess it needs to be reiterated every now and again as my channel has more exposure, reaches more people, can help out more people. Okay, so let's move forward, because I think I've talked about be careful with your PSA 10s, people, your vintage 10s, be super careful with that stuff. Even your vintage 9s, be super careful with that stuff. But I would say go for that more than maybe going for PSA 6, PSA 7, PSA 8. That stuff's probably going to be more rampant with flaws. Might not be happy with your purchases, and you might end up like me later on selling all of those middle grade slabs and taking a hit on it. Okay, and I think I've talked about the higher end cards, right? For me specifically, it's gold stars, it's crystals, it's shinings, it's just banger Charizard cards, banger Pikachu cards. The Van Gogh Pikachu is a fantastic example of a banger Pikachu card that I think could be a high-end card down the road. It's tragic what that card has ended up going for. It's tragic that people weren't able to get their hands on it, but that's also just an awesome card in my opinion that some people probably got for free and didn't think twice about it, but should be a card that people take care of, because I think it's going to go up in value down the road. And that's a good card as much as, Scalper's got several pairs. For a collector to get several pairs of that card, that is a huge win in my book. I know I have 2 copies and I'll be holding on to those for forever. Again, shout out to Derek. I owe you one for getting me on board to get those cards on time, because, I wouldn't have gotten those cards otherwise. And that's the other thing. In this community, reach out for help each other out, let each other know when stuff's happening. Because ultimately, that's what makes it great, is when you have people all working together in the hobby to make stuff happen. Even these videos, even the content that I make, it's from other people, suggestions, critiques. What was that? I don't know what that was. My dogs were banging up against the door or something.
I was putting a book away.
Okay. Anyways, I've been, okay, yeah, collection goals of the year. Sorry, guys. It's easy to take a break and think for a second. Collection goals of the year. So I told you guys in a video not too long ago that I really wanted to revamp eBay. I'm pretty proud of myself. This isn't like an auctions of the week type video. I don't have anything worth, I feel like, talking about right now. We got some basic stuff. I did put up some of those art box cards that I opened up. Put some lenticular cards, which a lenticular is a Pokemon card or Pokemon product that changes the movements. In this example, it's an evolution. I'm stuttering like heck, guys. We got Doug Trio turning to Doug Duo, Doug Trio turning into what did I'm literally forgetting Diglett. Wow. I always get Doduo and Diglett mixed up. I know it's bad. I know, shame on me. We got Aerodactyl, which is one of my favorites. I put those up. I think that these promos from Scarlet Violet Blisters are really cool. The Black Star Arcanines Shining, Steelix, we got another gold Mew card I'm going to put up for auction. This Milotic, which we pulled on stream out of the Silver Tempest pack that I just took an absolute L on. And then some Pikachu VMAX cards and some more blister promos. Not much, but I'm proud of myself because I do think that if you're going to build your store, you need to be listing tons of stuff back to back, and that builds that credibility, builds that feedback. It gets you more of a following. So I'm really proud of that. That's like a goal that's like not really collecting goals, but and something that I'm proud that I'm going to stick with and try and be more consistent on. I just got 11 orders out today. Feel really good about that. A bunch of cheap cards, but it's whatever. I did sell one of my Yu-Gi-Oh cards that I've been trying to sell for a while, a first edition Dark Paladin, so I was really happy about that. Kind of sad to see that card go, but it's whatever. My collection goals for the end of 2023, right? I want to list more stuff. I want to continue to trim my collection down. I have a ton of sealed product that I feel like at some point I'm going to have to trim some of that sealed product. I've been focusing on the single cards, but like learning how to sell sealed product and how much shipping is and how long it takes to turn over, that's really important to me. I need to start listing my sealed products and just see what's the turnover like. You know, how much are people willing to spend on these products? Is there really any margin at all on selling a mass majority of sealed products? Is there any margin at all? I don't think that there is for the most part, but that's something that I want to experiment with. I want to trim down my sealed collection, start selling that stuff more. In terms of like picking cards up, my main goals, Crystal Charizard. That's a collection goal of mine, a big one. That's arguably the number one collection goal right now is Crystal Charizard. That's number one for me. Love that card. I honestly didn't even like the Crystal Charizard that much. I thought the artwork was kind of goofy. Like it literally looks like Goofy. Like if you look at Charizard's face, he looks kind of goofy. Like, I don't know, his head's just big, it's just goofy looking. I don't know. But like more and more I've come to love that card, and since owning one, I just love it even more because I got to have it in person. It's just phenomenal. It's probably one of my favorite Charizard cards ever. I need the Crystal Celebi. I get those two, and I've completed my Crystal set in a 9 in English. I've had a couple options. I've had a couple chances to get the Crystal Celebi. Someone has it listed for $1,300. In my opinion, that's a $1,000 card. I've seen them go for $1,100. I'm gonna wait until I can find one for about $1,000. That's what I'm really hoping for. I've seen older cert 10s, and I've passed up on those because again, it's like we talked about. Sometimes you buy an old cert 10 and it's really a 9. It really should not have gotten a 10. So I need to be careful about that stuff. But that's all I have for crystals. For gold stars, I'm still on my gold star journey. I still need 17 or 16 gold stars left. I've been sending out offers. I've been sending out offers for gold stars. I've been not even low balls. I've been giving people straight up like really strong offers on their gold stars. No one is selling gold stars. Guys, when we see gold stars absolutely skyrocket down the road, people are going to be saying, oh, well, I always knew the gold stars were popular. They were just out of range. They're about to be very out of range. I believe, personally, every single sale that I see seems to be topping the last sale, and it worries me a little bit because I don't have all these cards yet. So I'm giving you my theory on what's going to happen with gold stars, and not just English, but Japanese gold stars too. I think they're going to trend up too. The English market's way more popular, but I still think that, once the English cards get completely out of range and out of affordability, that's when people inevitably are going to have to turn to Japanese. And that's why the Japanese vintage argument is such a strong argument too, because there's more of them out there. They're in better condition, so people are happier. And they're super easy to grade if you're buying them raw. I just think when the American English Grail cards run out of supply, people are going to turn to Japanese. And I'm not one of those people that really wants to jump on the Japanese bandwagon, but I fully understand it. And it makes perfect sense. There are so many pros to it. It's kind of like the undervalued option in Pokemon Grail investing right now. And there are some cards exclusively in Japanese. As far as the gold stars go, the Espeon Gold Star, that card is very lackluster in English American. It sucks, quite frankly. It's rare, but it sucks. There's no holo. There's no shine to it. That's like one of my favorite things about gold stars is that they're shiny Pokemon. And the hollows are phenomenal. They're old school, but they feel still kind of like they're not WotC era. They're when Pokemon Company took over for Wizards of the Coast. Like, they're just phenomenal. Love Gold Stars. Those have grown tremendously on me. And I have some pretty hot takes on where Gold Stars are going to go. And so that's probably my number one collection goal for 2023, 2024, and probably 2025 is just collecting Gold Stars, really staying focused on one at a time. Even if I can barely afford some of them, one at a time, because I really want to collect and finish and complete my Gold Star PSA collection. And if some of them are Beckett, whatever. Like, I think it might get to that point where I just have to settle for getting just different slabs. As well as I don't just want to collect them, I want to actually sell them and have them have duplicates, because I've grown to like them so much. It's like my theme decks. It's like all I want to collect is theme decks, Gold Stars. I know what my niches are and I want to continue with them. And, you know, eventually when I can afford it, or when my bar does better, or YouTube does better, I want to focus on modern alt arts too. I think there's a huge market for modern alt arts. I think we're in a really good buyer's market right now. And I think that, you know, people who are buying modern, they're taking a risk, you know, with the cheaper stuff that, you know, populations are going to increase, but it could really pay off in the end. So like, yeah, I want to focus on completing my theme deck collection. I'm missing like 4 theme decks. I want to focus on completing my Grail collection sets. I want to get the Shinings, finish the Gold Stars. I am in a tough financial position where I've been really good about saving my money. We went on this Mexico trip. I've mentioned it several times, but it's just the reality that emergencies and stuff in life, it happens, stuff pops up, and you're just screwed. Like, you're put in a totally different situation. And so while I love to think that my life will be consistent if I make smart choices, sometimes stuff happens. It's not in your control, and there's nothing you can do about it. Right now, I'm trying to contest some fraudulent hospital bills from Mexico, but you know, that's a whole other story. But my point is, I've got some bills on my credit card that I need to pay off, and so that's keeping me really from pushing towards these collecting goals, and that's making it tough to really even realistically see what I'm going to do, you know, what I'm going to collect, what I'm going to buy moving forward, because I need to be careful. This bill on my credit card is the most important thing. I don't want to take money out of my savings. You know, I've been making really good progress, so that's why I've started selling again. That's why I need to start, you know, forming a good game plan as a seller, and knowing what really is working in this market. I think I'd be happy this year with collecting one more crystal, one more gold star. And that's not nothing, right? That could be a lot of money. If I go for the Crystal Charizard, that is going to put me under, right? That card is going to keep me in even bigger debt. And so I need to be very, very careful about that, because I will have to move around money if I buy that card. Which is why, like, sometimes I send offers and I don't think people realize there are very few people in this market right now sending out multi-$1,000 offers on cards. There just aren't. And I'm sure a handful of 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 people max are probably sending offers on very expensive cards in this market. This market is uncertain. The economy is uncertain. It's a massive risk. And so I think, you know, another thing you need to do is when people send you a decent offer on a card, take that offer. So many times I've been punished for not taking that offer. Anyways, yeah, I would just love to collect like 1 or 2 cards before the year ends. I don't think that's too much to ask for, but at the same time, they're expensive cards. I have to go within my budget. I have to know what's working and what's not. That's, again, where modern comes in, right? I can make money each week from the bar, make some sales on eBay and Mercari, and I can use that towards paying off my debt, and I'll be fine. And I can still collect some modern stuff. Like at this local expo, I was able to pick up in my last video the Mew V Alt Art, the Arceus V Alt Art, and the Roaring Moon from Paradox Rift. You know, it's a phenomenal looking card. These cards are cheap relative to like expensive grails, and so like there's a fun factor involved where like I'm struggling because I really want to collect alt arts, but I have big vintage collection goals. I just want to get those out of the way so badly so I can just have fun. I think, having fun in this hobby is so important, and collecting modern makes that so achievable. Everybody can collect modern. You know, it's for everybody. I think that's why it's awesome. I think that's why we should appreciate it and not condemn it. Everybody and their mother has sealed product and modern alt arts. Again, that kind of makes them awesome. We can all relate and share that we have the same stuff. I think that's kind of cool. Anyways, lastly, I went to GameStop today. If you guys don't know, there are some deals at GameStop. I reluctantly bought these products. They were a little bit more than I wanted to pay. GameStop has a deal going on right now. I spent $250 and I got $25 off. I also got these for the pro member prices, and then I used my $5 monthly coupon as well to chip off a little bit more off these. I got my, I'll just take it out. I got my 151, I got another 151 UPC to open up for you guys. That is, I got that for $92 net. And then they only had 3 of these ETBs in the store at GameStop. I got these 3. I have 8 cards left. I have 8 cards left in 151. Again, I ended up spending like $220, but I got 4 boxes, honestly, of a specialty set that I absolutely love. And again, this is back to the argument of why I love modern alt art so much in modern sealed product. And I've been touting 151 since it released, right? I've been gassing up 151. I still will gas up 151. I think 151 is the premier modern Pokemon product to be investing in right now. I think it's going to pull an Evolving Skies on us in the next couple months. We'll see though. I could be wrong. Speculation. We'll see. But I will say, to get those ETBs for $45, to get that UPC for $92, even though they're using points from past purchases and whatnot, I'm happy with it, guys. Sometimes you're not going to get the best deal on the cards that you pick up, but you might pull some absolute fire from the stuff that you're picking up at the store. There's been plenty of times where I've ordered stuff online and gotten nothing. And there's been plenty of times where I've overpaid a little bit from Walmart or GameStop, and I've gotten really good hits. That kind of matters. If they somehow are getting different products from everybody else, that stuff matters. Anyways, that was just a little update. On Wednesday, we'll be doing a live stream, and there are 8 cards that I need left in 151. Speaking of 151, I will probably be listing more of my duplicates on eBay very soon, even though part of me feels like I shouldn't because 151 prices seem to continue to rise. But I'm hoping in these 4 products, I can pull maybe 1 or 2 more SIRs that I either already have or that I might need. I need 8 more cards, and honestly, I think only 1 or 2 of them are actually like semi-valuable. I think they're mainly cheap cards that I'm trying to get. So pulling is not the best thing, but given the fact that the UPC has the Mew cards, those are still fetching premiums in PSA 9, PSA 10. And I'll get all of these Snorlax promos from those ETBs, and they're 9 packs. So if I sell the Snorlax for $5 like I just did today, that brings that ETB price down to $40 on 9 packs, basically like $4.10 roughly a pack. Yes, $4.11 a pack would be my pack cost. And I figure in 3 ETBs and a UPC, and I'm sorry about the noise in the kitchen. There's always stuff going on here, but you guys get it. I figure in 3 ETBs and a UPC, there has to be a decent SIR. Whether it's Venusaur, Alakazam, Zapdos, Charizard, or Blastoise, literally everything that you could get from this set is great. And that's why, like, 151 is going to be king for a while, in my opinion. But, all right, rant done. Long enough. Peace out. I hope you guys appreciated the video, and let me know in the comments below what some of your collection goals are, or what you thought about the video. But let me know what your collection goals are for finishing out 2023 strong. And we'll do some coverage on Paldean Fates again, Shiny Treasure EX. We'll do some coverage on that soon. Everybody pretty much knows everything about the set. I don't feel like we need to be reviewing the set, but we'll do that for you guys. Anyways, peace out. Everybody have a fantastic day, and thank you.